Good afternoon. I'm Chair Roy Priest of the Housing Opportunity Commission. I'd like to thank you for attending tonight's commission meeting. As introduced in October, HOC staff have worked to incorporate the community forum into our virtual commission meetings. The commission will continue to provide time on its agenda for the members of the public to participate and share their concerns by signing up online in advance to address the commission. The online sign-in up form and guidelines for participating in the community forum for commission meetings can be found on our website at https://hoc.about-hoc/commissioners.html. If you are viewing our meeting via YouTube, the hyperlink is available in the description section of your browser screen. Tonight's community forum is limited to 30 minutes. Scheduled speakers were contacted in advance of the meeting and were prompted to speak by the platform moderator. Participants each have 3 minutes to speak. When your 3 minutes have expired, the meeting moderator will note the expiration of time and move on to the next speaker. For customers and others unable to address the commission this evening, you have the option to submit written comments to the commission on the same website page link provided in YouTube. Please be sure to consult the participation guidelines to ensure your submission meets requirements. I want to thank you, and we will go forward with the agenda. I want to announce that we have a quorum of commissioners who are present: myself, Roy Priest, the Vice Chair, Van Keller, Rick Nelson, Jackie Simon, and Jeffrey Merkowitz. So we will proceed with the agenda that was provided in the informational materials. We will start the meeting as usual with our Resident Advisory Board. Who is going to be speaking on behalf of the Resident Advisory Board today?
Just a quick note, Commissioner Kroom has joined.
Thank you. Is anyone aware of who's going to be speaking? If not, what I will do is I will move forward with the agenda. And when the person who's going to be speaking for the Resident Advisory Board acknowledges themselves, I will in fact recognize them. So we will then proceed with the community forum portion of the meeting. I think that there were 2 persons who signed up in advance to be commission speakers. The first speaker is Chantel Bacon.
Chantel, you and your attorney, Shanielle Perdue, who's also participating in this call, will have 3 minutes to speak. I will begin a timer to indicate when your 3 minutes have begun, and when your 3 minutes have ended, I will let you all know that your time to speak has ended. So just a moment as I bring up the timer.
Okay.
All right, your 3 minutes has begun.
Good afternoon. My name is Shanielle Perdue, and I'm an attorney representing Chantel Bacon. Ms. Bacon is a tenant who signed a lease in June for a property that contains defects she was not aware of, but the landlord had prior knowledge of. Now the landlord is benefiting by collecting rent and not letting her out of the lease for defective premises that she cannot fully use and enjoy. You have the power to protect tenants from such burdensome lease agreements they cannot easily break by requiring landlords to disclose such defects as is required in an owner-occupied home sale so tenants can make an informed choice. You also have the power to provide relief to Ms. Bacon by terminating her lease, and we are requesting that you do so. Chantel? You have to unmute yourself. All right, Ms. Bacon moved into an apartment complex at the end of June, beginning of July, and receives partial funding for her rent through HOC commission vouchers. She lives in the unit with her disabled daughter. Upon moving in, she noticed that the apartment had a roach infestation that the landlord has not been able to abate in 6 months. She has complained to the HOC and inspectors who have actually seen evidence of this roach infestation, but the landlord has refused to let her out of her lease. And at this point, she has exhausted all available remedies under the law, and you are her last hope of getting out of this lease that she did not sign up for. Right now, she cannot fully enjoy the use of the premises as she has to keep her belongings in trash bags and other sealed containers so that they will not have roaches in them. She also cannot fully use her kitchen, and she has to maintain her items in stored plastic containers and baggies, and also use disposable silverware and plates to ensure that her items have not been touched by the roaches. But we hope you will take consideration of her request and provide some relief. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Ms. Trudeau, on bringing this matter to our attention. You said that she's been in contact with someone on the HOC staff about this matter? Hello?
Yes, she has. She's talked to her counselor under the program. She's also filed a complaint, and inspectors have been out to her units a few times. And they've noticed roach infestations, in public areas as well in the community, in the apartment complex.
Okay, thank you. I will refer this matter to Mr. Span, our executive director, and ask him to provide a report to us. And I see that you have provided your telephone number. I will ask him to give me a report on the matter so that I will follow up and make sure that they are attentive to your request.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. The next speaker is Mr. Toby Emerson.
Mr. Emerson, you will have 3 minutes to speak. As a reminder, if you're live streaming the commission meeting on YouTube, please mute your live stream to ensure there's no echoes on the Zoom call. I will announce when your 3 minutes have started after starting the timer, and can let you know when your 3 minutes have ended at the conclusion of your speaking time.
Understood. Thanks.
Thank you, and your time begins now.
My name is Toby Emerson. Thank you for allowing me to speak here today and letting me express my concerns to the flooding our neighborhood has been incurring adjacent to your headquarters here in Kensington. I understand that the HOC has worked with the community to ensure that the newly built 10,000 square foot parking lot on your property be removed to its previous state as a grassy common area when you leave in a couple of years. I ask that you consider returning it back sooner than your departure, as well as returning it back to its whole previous state. From the scope of the transition back, it included restoring the parking lot into a grassy knoll by adding topsoil, seed, and if needed, sod. It did not mention removing the new asphalt. Having the asphalt buried under the topsoil will not be returning it to its original state and will not allow proper absorption we request to help minimize our flooding. I've included a small map with the drainage lines with my request to speak. They illustrate the runoff from your property and how it ties into the neighborhood stormwater system. I have also included pictures of my backyard and the impact runoff has on our very overwhelmed system, resulting in flooding and property damage on mine and others. We have been actively working with MCDOT to help minimize our overwhelmed system, but unfortunately, there is no plan in place to increase its volume anytime soon. There is a minimum of 24 acres of surface acres that feed into this one line, which so happens to converge in my backyard. When the system gets overwhelmed, it overflows from this column, creating a river that flows downhill, impacting homes in its path. I've sent a separate email to show you how this happens per videos I've taken. The stormwater drain column is located in the backyard of my house on Knowles and the backyard of the house on Summit. Thus, the flow impacts both lines of houses as it makes its way downhill to Ewell Street and further. I have also included in the same email a recent letter sent by the county to a developer who wants to build on Summit and Knowles, very near your property. This denial letter is for the proposal on how they want to develop this parcel because of the stormwater system, the same system both of ours are tied into, this denial letter, that is. The influx of flooding instances has the county planning very concerned for our area, and they are acting to help ensure that we are not quite literally wiped off the map due to the flooding. I believe the video links I've provided show just how much this stormwater is a threat to our neighborhood and the severity their destruction can have on us. Although you are not aware of these concerns during your planning and construction of this lot, I hope that now that you have been made aware, you will remove the 10,000 square foot, what is locally referred to as illegal parking lot sooner than later, especially with the lack of parking spots needed in these COVID times.
Thank you, Mr. Emerson. Your time has ended.
Mr. Emerson, I want to thank you for your comments. I also want to acknowledge the receipt of your email with the attachments that showed the condition that you are speaking about right now. And I think that my understanding is that you have had some discussion with our executive director, Mr. Spann, that would include also a site visit with you to look at the condition. It sounds to me like there are multiple participants that contribute to the problem that you are articulating, as you acknowledge that there's a 24-acre area that contributes to the flow of water that comes into your site. And so while we represent a small portion of that, nevertheless, we want to make sure that we can do whatever we can to remediate the situation as soon as we can do that. Certainly, we acknowledge we will return the property back to its previous condition when we leave it. But again, that's not next week. So we will meet with you. We'll see what we can do as a remedy. I think that if I remember, the entire parking area that we have for parking is also an apron most recently where there was some work done to create additional parking spaces. And I think that may be contributing more than the entire parking lot. But that's a condition that you and Mr. Spann can certainly look into, and we would expect that he will provide to us back a plan that we can inform you about as we proceed in next week.
Great. I do appreciate it. I just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention because it does impact our community so much, and we are neighbors. I'm literally 6 houses away from you guys.
Yeah, and we do want to be good neighbors. That's important. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
We will get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are the only two persons who have signed up for participation in the community forum section of the agenda today. Are there any others who have not been brought to my attention? If there are none, then I will proceed with the next item on the agenda, which is a report from the executive director.
All right. Good evening, commissioners. How are you?
Good evening.
Doing well.
So we obviously have sent the report. I want to highlight just a couple things on it. I won't read it in its entirety. I want to focus first on the COVID-19 efforts. We continue to sanitize our offices as well as much of the housing space. And in addition to that, we are deploying and constantly retraining on the protective equipment and devices. We are continuing to work remotely. Now, all that said, even those extraordinary efforts, in spite of those extraordinary efforts, during November, we had a few outbreaks. a number of positive tests received in 3 hubs, and consequently we quarantined staff from those hubs. They weren't coming into work. It was a total of around 20 maintenance staff members, including 3 supervisors quarantined through that month. That's about 33% of our maintenance division. And so some of these folks have returned during the last week of November and into December. We've been able to keep the division functioning, but as you know, we're continuing to fight the good fight and re-educate constantly staff on use of PPE. We have also are now asking a number of survey questions when customers are calling in for service at their units, and those questions include whether or not folks have been exposed to or have contracted COVID, what time period, et cetera. And so we're continuing to work to keep folks safe. And all I can say is it's been, we're fortunate to have had the outbreak contained in this way, but I expect over the next few months that we'll continue to see some ebb and flow with regard to COVID. And then I wanted to point out also that we are now officially in the holiday season. For us, that normally starts with Thanksgiving, and so we've had a number of virtual Thanksgiving celebrations at properties, but we've also continued to distribute Thanksgiving baskets to families throughout the county, and that action will continue into the Christmas holidays as well. Just wanted to point it out. As resident services staff are continuing to be cautious, but also helping to support families during this incredibly trying time. So with that, I'll conclude those 2 items, but I'm certainly available for questions about any part of the report or anything else.
Stacey, I've got a few questions. I mean, one, just as far as the staff that were tested positive with COVID, is everyone okay? Have folks recovered?
Yes, we've had recoveries, and fortunately we've had recoveries. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm just glad to hear. I also just wanted to ask, your report also included sort of an update on the COVID rental assistance program. It seems like there's only a small portion of the applicants were actually successful in that. Do you have any additional update on that? I guess both in terms of any progress in providing relief to those residents and how HOC is doing in terms of in percentages of tenants who have missed payments and how far behind.
Sure. So just on the COVID relief effort, that it's a bit overshadowed because this is a corollary program, if you will. There's an existing much larger program being administered by HHS. This is one of the lessons learned, and we actually have a regular conversation with our partners at DHCA, is around documentation. And so depending on the source of funding, in this case, CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, there are certain requirements for documentation. And so we worked in the first round, after the first round, to reduce the level of paperwork required. I think going forward, the county, into this HHS administered program, the county has even reduced more significantly the paperwork required. And so it's just become, I think, more efficient. But, I think the real issue is around how to substantiate the need in the event of audit or whatever else. And so I think there are certain components that we can't dispense with. And so it's an unfortunate side effect of some of the federal sources of funding. I expect that should there be another stimulus opportunity, And then as part of that, a rental assistance program that flows down to the local levels. I expect there to be a rollback of virtually all of the sort of common areas where we see a logjam in paperwork. Some of this, as you might imagine, is around whether folks are citizens or not, how to substantiate the need or not, the relationship with landlords, and so forth. And so my expectation is, given the new administration, that some of that would be eased quite a bit. Turning to your second question about HOC, we're seeing rent payment in the consistently in the sort of low 80s, I should say into the 70s into the low 80s, depending on the property. There are certain properties where folks are having real challenges. And so what I would say is, fortunately, that you all as the commission have been aggressive and direct around eviction moratorium, even before the county and state. And my expectation is that that's likely to continue for some time. Just a quick note about Headwinds. We're seeing an economic slowdown in real time, and for folks to act as if that's not occurring, or it might be reversed very quickly, given the tens of millions of jobs that were lost and over the last 8 months. It's unlikely that it's going to get better in the immediate future. My guess is that the federal government will be directing its efforts, and I think state and local as well, at trying to stave off a full-on recession. And so we're continuing to reach out to customers to try and develop that relationship. It's difficult. We as an agency, I think we as an industry, have not been very good at a sustained relationship with customers, and engendered a level of trust back and forth where folks can feel like they can call us up. And that for those folks who are listening, who are customers, what I say is, give us, be in contact with us. We've had the staff do wellness checks. We have the staff checking in to ensure that folks are still occupying their units, but also so that we can make contact and come up with some level of payment arrangement, even if folks have experienced job loss, income loss, or other related hardship. It's not an attempt to collect, but rather an attempt to establish a relationship so that we might figure out how to be supportive. So I hope that answers the question, Commissioner.
That's helpful. Thanks. And then just sort of final question or point. Glad to see that with the December holidays, that there are efforts to reach out to customers to provide some gifts and some support. Kind of connected with what we were just talking about with tenants or customers who are really struggling and maybe behind on payments. It's probably likely that they may be struggling in other areas as well, particularly with food.
Yep.
And I don't know if there are efforts that we can make to make sure whether they I don't know how many are on food stamps, and so maybe some are doing okay there, but may need additional support. If there are other things we can be doing in my community, our high school PTSA has really been very active in organizing sort of campaigns to, buy grocery cards, grocery gift cards, and other. There's a coat drive, other things. So we've been providing a lot of support to our community through that. And I don't know if there's opportunities there, and particularly if there's 1,400 applications, and only 300 were approved for some rent relief, that's some indication of the numbers who may be struggling.
No, it is an indicator. We've used it as an indicator. Part of the reason we wanted to have a rolling application process, in fact, was so that we could get a sense of real-time need. As I said, we've worked to resolve a number of those folks who had minor documentation issues. For some, we don't actually determine what is or isn't the process. We're working through it, and we've wrestled to get documentation from additional folks so that we could support them. With regard to the food insecurity, you're absolutely right. It has been an issue since the very beginning of COVID. Resident services, along with property and asset management, have been teaming to ensure that we reach as many folks and try and address the food and toiletry, paper goods challenges as we can. That does absolutely mean that we're working with county government, but also a host of nonprofits and religious institutions as well, and broader community schools as well, and trying to support folks as they need. So again, we're not. I can guarantee you that we're missing someone, and so I'd say for if you've got neighbors, friends, family who are part of this Montgomery County community, and there's an opportunity for us to help them, there is no harm in sending me an email or staff, and we will make a connection as quickly as we can, where we can, to try and make sure folks are supported.
Stacy,
Go ahead, Jackie.
we hear that a lot of people have been facing evictions throughout the metropolitan area, and there have been a lot of pressure, direct and indirect, on residents. Are our residents who are voucher users indicating that they are experiencing any kind of pressures that are illegal and improper?
There's a couple ways to answer that question. I'll answer it in the most direct. We're not hearing widespread tactics around eviction for folks. Are there some isolated incidents that are not that are occurring? Yes, they are, absolutely. And so where we're seeing that, we're working to shore it up, but it's not widespread from our vantage point. Does not mean it's not occurring, but in our portfolio of voucher landlords, largely we have landlords who are sophisticated, who have who've been a part of our program for some time, who are well versed in the programmatic regulations, as well as the landlord-tenant requirements of this county. And so we're not seeing it on a widespread basis, but certainly I've heard in the broad marketplace of instances in which families are succumbing in some cases to duress, but certainly experiencing it.
And just one other related question. I'm really glad to hear that answer, that in our program we're not feeling it. Are we feeling additional pressures from our wait list, or people on our wait list that are hovering on eviction and pleading for extra help? Or
I mean, so first, wait list has grown since March. The pressures that we're getting as an agency from outside the agency to skip people ahead of other folks and deal with emergencies has heightened. The general scramble for precious few resources hasn't increased. And I whenever asked, I mean, I'm just a houser, but whenever asked about stimulus and the like, I think the focus has to be on consumer and taxpayer. It just has to be. And unfortunately, I mean, we're all seeing the stimulus conversation play out or not in real time.
Stacy, can I ask you a question? First and foremost, hi to everybody. How far, or do one of your staff members know how far along have one of the residents or some of the residents haven't paid rent? Has it been since March? And is any of the landlords calling HOC to try to get monies? I know you pay your part, but I'm talking about from letting them know that that our clients haven't paid theirs.
You're talking about voucher. Just want to, for everyone's edification, we're talking about vouchers households in particular. Lynn Hayes is on. Lynn, I'm sure we're hearing the clamor for folks who haven't paid, but we're seeing 8-month arrearages. Yes.
Yes, but like you said, just to piggyback, it has not been so broad. We've gotten a few isolated cases that we have walked our landlords through how to handle, but overall we have not, had that many cases. Just to add, the subsidy costs that we are paying on behalf of our families has increased about $50 from the onset of the pandemic. So the majority of the voucher families are reporting their changes in income to us, and we are, adjusting their payments and paying a higher subsidy.
The reason why I asked that question is because the attorney got on there and the attorney act was saying that this is the last result. HOC is the last result. And I'm trying to understand, are we still paying this landlord monies after she's been complaining about the rodents, the roaches that are in her house?
Sure. So let me, Commissioner, as you know, there's a set of agreements. Our agreement is with the landlord, and then separately we have sort of an agreement with the voucher holder. But on the first of the month, we're required to pay our share of the rent. 1, 2, all landlords have to be given an opportunity to remedy the issue. So I recognize, and I want to be careful to respect the privacy of our customer in this particular instance, but I want to illuminate the actual process. And so we can't simply refuse to pay the landlord because there's a dispute between landlord and tenant. And as I said, the landlord must be given an opportunity to remedy the situation. So we, and Lynn will jump in here wherever, but we've sent out folks to inspect their arm's length. And quite frankly, in this particular instance, there's a disagreement about whether or not the landlord has remedied it. The landlord has affirmed that they've remedied the situation, and they've been treating it, and they provided us with documentation that supports that. An independent inspection finds that, in fact, the sort of broad infestation has been abated. So we're not seeing that evidence. So that, yes, the attorney mentioned that she, that we agreed, that's in fact not correct. And then, and finally, we've worked to try to make space for both the landlord and tenant to have conversation with one another. But the bottom line is the landlord gets an opportunity to remedy the situation, and we have to continue paying, particularly if if the situation is remedied. We don't have, we can't just let go of landlords or let folks move because there's a dispute. We cannot do that.
Yeah, I understand that part.
Nelson,
Can I go back to the conversation, Stacy, between you and Commissioner Merkowitz? This would be a good opportunity for you to mention to those who are watching us that we have a nonprofit which in fact provides some assistance to some of our residents, and the nonprofit would gladly receive donations to help in that regard. And
Indeed.
if you could provide that information, we might also think about having that at the bottom of some of the stuff that you send out when you put the agendas. Because I'm not sure that a lot of people realize that we've got that nonprofit that in fact is sole purpose is to help residents.
So thank you, Commissioner. Yes, I totally neglected to mention our nonprofit partner, HOCP, who just recently had people supported through Giving Tuesday. Thank you for all who supported, but also through the virtual gala this year. Thank you for all who supported. All those monies go to support things like programmatic remedies for food insecurity and educational advancement of children and families who are under-resourced, all manner of programming around financial literacy, and just broad community support. So you're absolutely right. And Kristen and Nico, if you could perhaps find a URL and stream it for those watching, that would be helpful. Yeah, so thank you very much for pushing me on that point. Commissioner Kroom, I want to make sure that we actually addressed your point, though.
Yes, I was just trying to find out. I know that the landlord don't support, he has to get paid. I know that. But I was just trying to get some understanding with her, and then the attorney was saying that this is her last resort, is us, and we're part, so we're like a third party. So I was a little confused with that. They're still getting paid.
Yes, I mean, I think she wants us to, she's very clear. She wants us to terminate the lease.
Right.
All right.
Okay, Ms. Span, okay, if going forward, I would make a request to you that as part of really validating and giving some substance to the community forum on issues like this that come before us, if you could provide to the commissioners after the meeting a report on what's going on and include a report in your executive committee's report for the subsequent board commission meeting, I'd appreciate that.
Based on customer issues and so forth?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm not asking for blow for blow, but within the range of confidentiality, just to give the commissioners an understanding of how the matter was resolved.
Sure, absolutely. No, I'll certainly look for that prior to next meeting. Absolutely.
Thank you. If there are no other comments from the commissioners, I want to, before I advance the agenda, to go back to see whether or not someone is on to speak for the Resident Advisory Board. I think I saw Chantel.
She's there. She's on mute.
Could you unmute yourself?
Yes, I am here now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
For the record, my name is Chantel Reddix, and I'll be giving you the update for the November 2020 meeting. We welcomed Leanne McDowell and Lachey Walters to their first meeting. We had a very informative presentation from Lynn Hayes, Director of Housing Resource Division. Ms. Hayes presented proposed changes to the Housing Choice Voucher, Chapter 22 Administrative Plan. After the presentation, we discussed, agreed, and voted on the new changes. We also agreed to provide Mrs. Hayes with a letter for support from the board. We're still working with LPA on the HOC website landing page for RAB. We finalized the RAB monthly meeting dates for the incoming calendar year 2021, and these dates were submitted to Ms. Patricia Birdsong. RAB is still in the process of recruiting new board members, and our plan is to continue interviewing prospective candidates. Myself, the other board members, Commissioner Kroom, and Ms. Rita Hayes are proud to pronounce that President Lakia Thompson has graduated from the University of Maryland Global College with a master's degree in management with a specialization in nonprofit and association management, and will graduate and will receive her degree later on this month. Congratulations on the job well done, President Thompson. Finally, Rab would like to wish Stacy, the commissioners, and all of the HOC staff a happy holiday. Thank you.
Very much for your report. Are there any questions to?
Thank you.
Reddish?
Yeah. Hi, Chantal.
Yes.
I just wonder if you have any comments or if you've been hearing from fellow residents in terms of how they're doing, during sort of the COVID, the economic downturn, and whether they're getting responses and support that they need from HOC.
I did have a conversation with a couple of residents, and I did refer them to the website for the information that they needed. I've done a follow-up, but I haven't gotten a response yet. But that was earlier, maybe early and middle of the summer. But since then, I haven't had anyone question me or ask in regards to that matter, no.
No, thank you. And yes, please do, as Stacy was saying, anyone that needs support, needs help, please make sure that they're reaching out.
We'll continue to do so.
Thank you. And on behalf of the commissioners and staff, you make sure that you let the residents know that we likewise extend back to you all a happy holiday season.
Well, thank you so much.
If not, we go to the next item, which is the commissioners' exchange on the agenda. Any items to be brought to the good and well-being of the organization and the commissioners? I will extend to you all from myself to you a happy holiday season. This is our last meeting of the fiscal year 2020. When we start our next meeting, will be in January. So that I want to wish you all a happy holiday season and stay safe, healthy, and enjoy small celebrations for Christmas. So thank you all for that.
Thank you. Same to you.
Commissioner, just Chair Priest, just a quick moment. It's the calendar year, our fiscal year. In case our auditors are watching, our fiscal year. Yeah, it's just the calendar year.
Okay, the calendar year 20 ends. Okay, it still will be in our fiscal year when the new year starts. Understand? Right. Okay. All right. With that, let me advance the agenda. The next section is for the approval of minutes. I want to make an amendment to this section of the agenda to remove item C, which is the approval of minutes of November 20th, 2020, the Development and Finance Committee meeting. I'm removing that item because it is a committee action and referring it back to the committee for their approval. The items that were recommended for action by the committee are in fact reflected on the agenda going forward for different committee reports. But I'm going to refer the actual formal approval of the minutes back to the Development and Finance Committee. With that, I ask for approval for the minutes of November 4th, 2020, the approval of minutes of November 4th administrative session, and the approval of minutes for the November 24th special session. Is there a motion?
So move, Rick Nelson.
Moved by Commissioner Nelson.
Second by Commissioner Kelleher.
By Commissioner Kelleher. Are there any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed is nay. So ordered. We will now move to the administrative and special sessions ratification. This is the acceptance of the HOC's fiscal year 20 audited financial statements. Is someone presenting this?
Hi, Commissioner. We usually don't have presentations for ratifications.
Okay,
this is just
the special session.
Yes.
right. It's the same.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the ratifications of actions taken in the special session of November 24th?
I move approval of ratification of the November 24th special session action.
It's been moved by Commissioner Nelson, seconded by
Commissioner Simon?
Commissioner Simon. Are there any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposers, nay. So ordered. Next, we'll go into the consent section of the agenda. We have, on that area, we have 2 items. The revisions to the HOC's administrative plan, being 1, and the amendments of approval to increase the obligations to draw on the PNC line of credit. These are consent items. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
I move that we can approve consent to item 20-83, revisions to HOC administrative plan for the Housing Choice Voucher Program to update statutory changes to the project-based voucher program.
Are you gonna,
Move to approve the consent item for 20-83. I have
second?
a motion. I have a
Second,
second.
Rick Nelson, seconds.
Probably moved and seconded. Are there any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposers, nay. So ordered. The next item, B, is for the amendment to approve to increase the obligations to draw on the PNC line of credit.
I move approval.
I second.
It's been approved, recommended for
I
approval
just
by
have a
Nelson.
quick, I just have a quick question. So this is about a change in the disclosure of the interest rate. I went back and looked at the last month, so it looks like the rate is actually lower. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Correct.
Okay.
This is just to clarify the draw at the tax exempt rate versus the taxable rate. It's a small error in that we were representing it at the taxable rate at LIBOR plus 90, and we're correcting it to reflect the tax exempt rate at a percent of LIBOR plus 59 basis points.
Right. So an error in our favor.
Yes.
Yes. Good.
Let's have more of those.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to approve item 20-89?
So moved.
Been moved by Commissioner Nelson, seconded by Commissioner Simon. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those who oppose, nay. So ordered. We will now go into the committee reports and recommendations for actions. The first committee is the Development and Finance Committee. Chair Jackie Simon.
Good afternoon, all. The first item that the committee wishes to move forward for the full commission's approval is the approval for executive director to execute a task order to engage Lurch, Early and Brewer for legal services. And I think our process of doing this for the benefit of those watching should be described in how we have created pools and why, and how this fits into that process.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Kayreen Brown, Deputy Executive Director, and this item was discussed in the Development and Finance Committee, and the budget for pre-development expenditure has been approved by the Commission, and we're asking the Commission to approve the selection of Lurch Early Brewer to provide legal land use services to continue with the entitlement of this development. Jay Shepard is leading this part of the process, and I'll ask him to outline the contents of this memo for you, and we'll take your questions along the way or at the end. Jay, if you're on, please take over and discuss this with the Commission.
Okay, thank you, Kayreen. Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Jay Shepard, and I'm a Senior Financial Analyst in the Real Estate Development Group under Kayleen. And this item is for approval for the Executive Director to execute this task order. The task order is related to the proposed HOC headquarters, which is on the site across from the Elizabeth Square developments in Silver Spring, and it's expected to be entitled via the mandatory referral process. Like Kayleen had mentioned, the budget for this has already been previously in front of the commission, was approved, but the particular task order that we're asking and seeking from Lurch, Hurley and Brewer is for work related to entitling that particular site under this process. And that, I'll add a little bit of background for that mandatory referral process. It is a unique process. It's a development related review process, and it is reserved for non-residential public sector developments. And so typically that's not something the Housing Opportunities Commission engages in, just because most of our developments are residential related. And so if the uniqueness of the process is matched really by the uniqueness of the legal firms that can actually provide the expertise to help the commission navigate that process in the county. And so we've created pools for various things at HOC. One of them is a legal counsel pool, and that was created under commission authorization on April 3rd, 2019. And Lurch, Hurley Brewer was one of the firms in that pool. They are a firm that is uniquely qualified to provide the direction and assistance that we were looking for. And so we initially engaged them to help explore this option. And as this developed into a route that we could take, they became really the only firm in that pool that could provide these unique services. The aggregate cost is expected to be approximately $365,000, and that's in excess of the $250,000 executive director signing authorization limit set by our procurement policy. And so this item does have to be approved by the commission. Staff has included an additional $35,000 on top as a contingency, that just in the event that some issues arise during the process, we don't have to return to the commission necessarily for execution of additional task order to cover those small related items. So the authority that we're asking for is up to $400,000, and that's the base of 365 plus the commission of 35,000. If approved by the commission, the engagement will be funded, as we've stated, by the previous pre-development budget that's already been approved. And so I'll stop there, and we'll answer any questions if you have some.
I'd make two comments. One, you mentioned the pool, and I think Commissioner Simon was asking how it got established. You should, just for the purpose of the record and those listening, state that the pool was the result of an RFP, and the firms selected in the pool were firms that had submitted proposals under that RFP. The other thing, and maybe it's just me, but I am not, unless I've missed something, I'm not convinced that mandatory referral is limited only to non-residential. We might use it for non-residential only, but I'm not convinced that it is limited to non-residential. Just unless you know something different, just for the record.
Not for the record. That was my understanding, but certainly, that shows the complexity of that process.
No, I agree. It is complex. I do understand that, and there happen to be differing opinions on the use of mandatory referral for residential and by whom. But I just don't want us to preclude the option of pursuing it later if we decide that we'd like to do that.
And we have never used mandatory referral before, have we?
No,
We had occasion
it's
to.
not. HOC has not.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are there questions of anyone? The committee supports this resolution. And if there are not questions, I would move on behalf of the committee that resolution 2084 be approved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded that resolution 20-84 be approved. Any questions? If there are none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed with nay. So ordered. Next item is resolution 20-85.
This item relates to the final development plans for Stewart Town Homes. And the commission has been working with the community for some time. And Corinne, who is going to be presenting this?
Good afternoon again. For the record, I'm Kareen Brown, and this time, Gio Cavalazzi, who's a senior financial analyst with the real estate group, will outline this request for you. And we've been working on this transaction for quite some time. It will be the resyndication of an existing former tax credit transaction that is 100% owned by HOC, as the limited partner interest has been bought back by HOC. And we're preparing, again, as I said, for resyndication into a new tax credit ownership entity. With that, I'll turn it over to Gio, who will discuss the main points with you very briefly, and we'll take your questions. Gio, please go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, commissioners. For the record, my name is Gio Cavalazzi. I'm a senior financial analyst at the real estate division. And as Karen said, this is a final development plan presentation and request for approval for Stewart Town Homes. The property is a 94-unit townhome property located at on Maris Lane in Gaithersburg. And the property was constructed in 1977, had last major renovation in year 2000, in the same year when it was last syndicated as a tax credit property. And now we're seeking to, the 15-year initial compliance period ended a few years ago, and we're seeking to re-syndicate and renovate the property. The property is 100% affordable at 60% MI. But beyond that, the rent levels at the property are even lower than what's required at that affordability level. Just to give you an example, on average per unit rents for all units compared to market comparable properties is about 72%, and compared to similar affordable properties, it's at 80%. So the residents at the property pay substantially lower rents than even in comparable affordable properties. And so this resyndication will renovate the property comprehensively and preserve the affordability for the residents. We project the closing to occur in the first quarter of next calendar year, in February or March of 2021. And we've finalized our selection of our development team, which consists of Zavos Architecture, Harkins Builders is the general contractor, Edgewood Management is the property manager, and Boston Capital, which was recently acquired or is in the process of being acquired by Boston Financial, will be a syndicator for tax credit equity. So the renovation scope is comprehensive. The interiors of the units will be comprehensively renovated. The appliances, mechanical systems, fixtures.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just to point out really quickly, there is a slight chance that the tax syndicator may change if we can come to a better pricing arrangement. But it's only if we're coming to a better pricing, generally pricing arrangement with some other terms.
Thank you, Stacey. So the interiors will be comprehensively renovated. The 5 of the existing units will be converted to fully accessible UFAS units, and as I said, all 100% will be 60% affordable at 60% AMI of the area income. The renovation is scheduled to start in March or April of 2021 and will proceed in phases. Each phase will consist of 14 or so units and take approximately 2 months. The residents will be temporarily relocated to on-site and off-site units to vacate the units and renovate them. At the end of the 60-day period, those residents will move back in, and the next phase renovation will start. So the total budget for this transaction is $38 million, 12 million of which approximately will come from tax-exempt bonds. Around just under 12 million will come from HOC seller note, and 8.5 million approximately from tax credit equity. And with that, I think that summarizes all the important points of the development plan, and we request your approval for the plan and your authorization for us, for staff to negotiate, and for the executive director to execute documents that go with the development plan. I can answer any questions you may have.
Go ahead, Commissioner Simon. Go ahead.
I want to be sure that as we are making this kind of an investment in this community, that wherever it is humanly possible, that we are assuring the elimination of architectural barriers, both interior and on the site. For instance, when we're working on the playground, I want to be sure that we are providing attention to equipment that can be used by children who have vision impairments or who also have mobility impairments. And there's just an awful lot of attention been given to developing equipment now that is usable by all children. And I feel very strongly that wherever we can remove steps or on sidewalks and so forth, that we are making all of those changes so that the community is more resident friendly and more usable to both our residents and their guests. So I trust that is been appropriately addressed in your plans and your development and renovation plans.
It has, and the common areas are fully accessible. The playground will be fully accessible, and we'll take note of your requests as we finalize our development plans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kuhn.
Yes, thank you. Gio, I heard you say that it would be, you're going to do 14 at a time. Am I correct? 14 units at a time?
Approximately. Some phases have fewer units, but most of them are 14, correct?
14, and the residents are aware of this. Because I know a couple of people that live in Stewarttown, and I remember them talking about it, but they didn't know when it was going to happen yet.
Yeah.
So,
we had our initial resident meeting about 2 years ago now, when we were going through our RAD 2 process for the project-based vouchers, and they were informed at that time that renovation was coming up. We're planning to hold more meetings now as we approach the closing, so they will be fully informed about the phasing and which residents will be in which phase and when they have to plan to be relocated. But in general, they are aware of the plans and of the general approach and how they're going to be relocated.
And this will be concluded in 24 months, am I correct?
Fewer than that. We plan to conclude the renovation by May or June of 2022. So that's about 14, 15 months from the start. And it will convert the transaction to permanent financing a few months after that. But the renovation will be completed in 14 to 15 months.
Thank you.
Gail, you said that the residents were advised 2 years ago and that we are planning to have meetings soon or whenever. If we're going to start renovations in April, you need to have some kind of notification to the residents sooner rather than later to at least just let them know that it is relatively imminent. We can't wait until April to let people know that renovation is about to begin.
Agreed, Commissioner. We, given the COVID environment, we'll have to make some adjustments, but
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. We'll plan to have several opportunities to interface with folks and
Okay.
sense of timing.
Right.
My guess is that the staff has been in the same catch-22 that we often are with community groups, that until we approve it, it actually isn't going to happen. And so they have to wait for us to have this meeting so that they can be confident in terms of it going forward beyond the general outlines of what's going to happen. So
Right. And we're in the process of, our staff is working to schedule virtual meetings, and we also have a letter in my inbox waiting to send to Stacy to fix his signature for general information notice to the residents. So those things are in the works, waiting for this meeting and for us to start mobilizing to send them out. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
If you could, Gil, if you could go back to slide number 70, page 75, which shows you the development renovation phases. That would clarify for commissioners what the time frame and how that's going to happen. I thought this was very thoughtfully done with the chart that's there and shows you by color iteration where the development is going to start and where it's going to end. So if you could, someone could move it back to 75.
Please, could you move it back to 75? I don't have.
it might be 78 in some
78,
packets.
78.
Here we go, 78.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, so each color coding signifies renovation phasing, and as you can see, the buildings are separated out, which helps with the COVID related issues. Renovation and the construction activities will be limited to 2 buildings at a time, and each 2 building will be separated out from the rest of the property, and the interaction of the residents and the construction workers will be minimal. And so the renovation will start from the kind of far end of the property that is highlighted in red here, and then in progress from there up towards the top of the property, the front Stewart Town Road. And so each color is a separate phase shown here on this map.
Thank you. And if you could now go to page 81. The reason I'm referring to this because the actual resolution requires several actions. One is to approve the development plan. The other one is the formation of the ownership entities. And so this slide shows you what the details are behind that, because as was indicated in your earlier presentation, this is a previously funded tax credit property that has now gone through the 15 years, and now we're getting ready to refinance it again through tax credits and creating another ownership entity. So I just wanted just to quickly run through that piece.
Sure. Yeah, these are new special purpose entities that HOC formed for this transaction, and we're asking you to ratify the formation of these entities. Currently, the property is owned by MV Affordable Housing Limited Partnership. And HOC is a full owner of that entity. And when the transaction occurs, the new owner entity, HOC at Stewart Town Homes LLC, will acquire the property from MV Affordable Housing LP. Of the owner entity, HOC Stewart Town Homes LLC will be HOC's managing member special purpose entity, and another part of the owner entity will be another special purpose entity that'll come from the tax credit syndicator / investor.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from commissioners?
I just would like to remind my colleagues that if my memory and information serves me correctly, Stewart Town was motivated at the request, I believe, of the city of Gaithersburg as a cooperative venture in some form. I'm not sure of the form, but I know that the city had asked us to become involved. And I think that we will be, those who are aware of that will be pleased to know that a major renovation is taking place, and be happy to know that's occurring.
I had a few questions. So was happy to see that, you know, there's a number of energy efficiency components to the renovation. I was just more out of curiosity. Were solar installations considered, or when do we consider that as part of a renovation?
We did consider, we had energy efficiency consultant do an energy audit and a general evaluation of both the improvements inside the units, and also just to take a look and see if any solar installation would be feasible. I think, and this was at the beginning of the planning for the renovation, when we're starting the design of the renovation scope, and their conclusion was because the age of the roofs, the rooftop installation would not be possible or would be expensive to improve them enough to support solar installations. And so we, at that time, we decided that it was not economically feasible.
Does that raise any questions about the quality of the roof or needs for?
No, the roofs will be replaced as part of the renovation. So as far as their suitability for residential rooftops, they're perfectly good now, and they will be renewed, but they have to support substantial weight.
Okay.
Actually, solar installations are to be put on top, and that's what their concern was about.
Okay. And separately, regarding the relocations, the resident relocations, so there are not enough vacant units right now to keep them within the complex. So where will the offsite relocations be?
Yes, we have 4 vacant units on site, and those will be prioritized for families who have or residents who have special needs or who have children, and they prefer or need to stay on site. The remaining 10 residents will be relocated off site. HOC has many scattered site units as well as multifamily units in the area, and some of them may prefer to stay with their families for 2 months. But once after the notification letters go out to the residents, we'll plan to meet with them. We'll find out exactly what they prefer, and we'll find suitable temporary accommodation for everyone.
Right. And so moving on to some numbers, I guess with this is this a 9% LIHTC?
It's 4%.
No, 4%.
Oh, it's 4%. Okay. And you mentioned that the syndicator may change. Are we not happy with the price we're getting, or how does the price compare historically?
So this price is okay. It's really the pricing and the terms as well. So there's an opportunity potentially to get slightly better terms.
Okay. Okay. And I also,
go ahead.
Well, go ahead, Stacy.
I was going to say, in those terms, frankly, don't just simply enhance the tax credit equity, but the ability for the entire community to be improved. So that's why we would do it.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I also noted that the presentation notes that the operating expenses are very high. And I was just doing some back of the envelope there, and it looks like they'll be going down from 940,000 to 807,000, which is, I guess, going down from 62% to 52% ratios. And I was curious, one, where the savings were coming from here, but then also what else is being done to get them down
more in line with what's expected?
Well, we don't have the ability to build new units. Obviously, spreading the operating expense over a greater number of units is the best possible way to do it. And just for, you all know that this is why we try to optimize the number of units on any given parcel. One, because we actually care about affordable housing, but we care about it being high quality, community connected, well designed, and affordable into perpetuity. And so this is an instance when we go low density, recognize that that we're going to have higher operating costs as a consequence. I think we have the opportunity here to manage down some of those costs because we'll have greater efficiency with appliances, et cetera. But Nico, why don't you speak to some of the other opportunities for cost savings? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to tell Nico to do something else.
Commissioner Markowitz, yeah, the big part of the reduction will come from the energy efficiency improvements. The property, the residents pay electricity, gas, the property pays water utility, and water utility improvement. Our energy study at the beginning of the planning process suggested that we can see to around 25 to 30% overall savings in the utility costs, including site electricity and overall water utility costs. That's one part of it. And another part is maintenance expenses. Because of the age of the property, the maintenance expenses are relatively high, and we hope that's going to be reduced substantially because everything's going to be renewed. And those two are the major categories. There are some other smaller line items in the budget that we're trying to bring back under to comparable property levels, but overall those are the two main categories.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we're working not unilaterally, we're working with the property management and the budget office, and we are confident that we can achieve those savings because we're looking across the organization and not just at this one property. And we believe we're able to reallocate some of those costs in an efficient way.
Okay, right. No, thank you. And so, but it sounds like from Stacy, what you were saying, that the largest issue is one of scale, and that it's just not.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
Yeah. Okay.
For lack of scale.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Any other questions? I would just make note that one of the things about this project to me that stood out beyond the physical definition of the property is the fact is the affordability.
Mm-hmm.
And that we are keeping this property affordable with the investments that we are making at 60% AMI. And I think that's really important for maintaining the occupancy of those current residents, at the same time supporting the redevelopment of the property. So I want to give accolades to the staff for really focusing on that, and because the fact that the pricing, as you well know, of money and everything else really affects what we can do in terms of maintaining affordability. So just want to acknowledge that. You want to make a motion to approve resolution 20-85?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved by Commissioner Simon, seconded by Commissioner Kelleher. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposers, nay. So ordered. Next item is resolution 20-86. Chairman Simon.
All right, and
This project is for West Side Shady Grove and the approval of the final development plan, and for us to move forward with other steps necessary to move.
sure. And for this item, I'll ask Marcus Irvin to lead the discussion. He's the housing acquisition manager in the real estate development group. And Marcus, please begin.
Good evening, commissioners. For the record, my name is Marcus Irvin, housing acquisition manager under the real estate development team, and apologies in advance for the barking dog in the background. However, this afternoon, I'm here to present the approval of a final development plan and related actions, including authorization for the executive director to accept the assignment of third-party contracts for the development, ratification of formation of additional legal entities, authorization to accept a Montgomery County Housing Initiative Fund short-term bridge loan of an amount up to $15 million, and authorization to advance funds in an amount up to $1.6 million for the payment to secure building permits and buying the builder's risk insurance. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, there you go. So quick highlights on the executive summary. It was approximately a year ago when we brought this development to the commissioners. And since that time, the initial project has changed as such that we've added a 30% affordability component, including 25% set aside for households at 50% of AMI and 5% at 65% of AMI, with the balance of the units being market rate. We closed on this transaction last year, December 18th, 2019, with a modified development concept. And then we also incorporated 19 UFAS and audiovisual units, and also incorporated the HOC Up County Service Center within the first and second floor of the building. Presently, the development is slated to close on January 28th, 2021, beginning construction in February with an approximate 24-month schedule. Lease up for a period of about 16 months with the first unit delivery in November of 22 and stabilization in February of 2024. A note that the current request of the commission does not include approval of the general contractor contract, which will be forthcoming at January's commission meeting. So as such, the request tonight is for—
Real quick, Marcus.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but this is an ideal time frame. Obviously, if there's some economic headwinds, some of this is going to change. I just want to point that out for the good of the order. But we fully expect, all things being equal, we'd be proceeding on a time frame similar to what Marcus laid out.
Yes. Thank you, Stacey. So with the request is the approval for the final development plan and related actions. A little bit of information just on the insurance aspect of it and the need to bind the policy early. Previously, the treaties that insurers set the rates were to expire December 31st of this year. That's now been extended to May. However, with economic uncertainty, we felt it'd be prudent to be able to bind earlier in the event that the market changed. And then also to be able to pay for the receipt of building permits in advance of the FHA endorsement for the permanent financing. So once again, just to advance the development efforts, we're requesting approval of the final development plan. I'll get into some additional details. Next slide, please. Prior commission approvals, just walk you through the initial introduction of the project back in September, acquisition approval in December, and then the two major actions in July for the arranging of the financing, which will be presented in the finance plan by Jennifer Arrington, and then also adoption of the resolution for that effort as well. Next slide. Development overview, just to dovetail with the executive summary, 268 units total. We do have a good amount of retail, including the HOC service center space. Parking garage as well included for approximately 400 spaces. Estimated total project costs, roughly $119.3 million. And the construction contract number is a placeholder of $76.4 million. We already went through the development timeline, but this is just here for convenience to break out the milestones. Next slide. Development overview. Essentially, this has a storied history and bright future as shown here. It's part of a larger multi-phase development, inclusive of townhomes, condominiums, built by EYA as our development partner. There's a multifamily component directly across the street, known as the Daily at Westside Shady Grove, which was developed by EYA and Mizuto. And as you see highlighted in D, our proposed development, and then a future phase of multifamily highlighted in green. Next slide, please. Looking here is just the overall building envelope. I don't have access to a pointer, but if I could break this down into two phases. Phase A, thank you. Phase A would include the reverse number 7 that wraps the blue parking garage, kind of split right down the middle. That would be the first phase to start construction. And then phase B includes the 5-story portion of the building as part of just the overall construction schedule. So we have some units that wrap a garage with direct access, retail on the first level, and highlighted in green to the bottom right is the HOC Service Center entrance. There's also a full second floor area, which would be designed for social distancing in mind and sort of the future workplace, bright and airy interiors, and a lot of technological advances to allow for caseworkers and clients to not only be transit oriented within the building and outside, but also just to interact with service workers. There's a good sized courtyard in the center that has a lot of the activity and recreational spaces, and then a whole host of amenities throughout the first level of the building.
Marcus, what kind of units are wrapped around the garage? I've forgotten that.
Oh, it's the same floor plans that are replicated throughout the building. So mix of 1, 2s and 3 bedrooms.
And multi-story? I mean, are they 5 stories too?
So the phase A is about 7 stories.
Okay.
Phase B is about 5 stories, but the grade differs depending on how you're looking at it.
Okay.
And there is a bridge that connects the garage to the phase B component.
Okay.
Next slide,
Marcus,
please.
if I can ask a quick question, I guess, why do we need 476 parking spaces for 268 units? Is that mandated, or how did we come to that?
Yes, parking count was mandated by the county for the residential. And then we also have parking square footage is allotted for based on the size of the HOC office space. And then for the balance of the retail, the county specified a number, per 1,000 square feet of retail. So these were parking ratios established by the county.
Okay, thanks.
And one other note to your point about sustainability, the building is being built to National Green Building Standards. We did also look at incorporating solar in the future. We did learn that the building is very energy efficient. However, we are incorporating conduit for future sustainability measures. So.
Okay, thank you. I was actually going to ask about that. So thanks for anticipating.
No problem. Next slide. Really, the development transaction rationale really highlights the hallmarks of this development. First and foremost, the affordable housing demand. Montgomery County, like much of the region, is experiencing a significant shortage of affordable housing. And when we initially presented this development to the commission, and were instructed to create a more full spectrum and deeper level, we charged the team with figuring out a way to incorporate affordable 3-bedroom units. So we have done that. The development is also transit oriented with the Shady Grove Metro Station within walking distance. And then once again, incorporating the service center right at the front door just provides direct access with our clients and caseworkers. There's also the public-private partnership aspect with EY and Bozzuto, being some of the top developers in this region experienced in this type of construction. And then also the HOC approach, combining the real estate development team as well as mortgage finance to not only deliver the project, but finance it as well. Next slide, please. These are just a collection of images that we've stock imagery for the mood and aesthetic of the building. And also just to give you a sense of the high quality interiors, the lobby areas, lounges and theaters. So just a few images to provide that aesthetic. Next slide. Once again, if you've already read through this, this just breaks down the primary members of the team, which include EYA, Bozzuto and the co-developer, property manager and general contractor role. And then our architect, KTGY, who has developed other developments for the commission, as well as the daily across the street. Next slide. Development plan, sources and uses. Worth noting here on the uses side, there has been a market shift in the construction and financial sectors for this development. So currently this reflects the estimates, which we will bring back forth to the commission on the construction side. But it does include the estimated construction numbers, insurance costs, and then also on the financing piece, which will be also detailed in the plan of finance, includes an FHA risk share mortgage, right around 96 million, but it goes up to 100. Soft sources from the county HIF, of which the county actually approved that at loan committee on December 2nd. So we're awaiting a commitment letter and next steps to time with the closing. Next slide.
Quick point. Noted in his prior slide, the supply chain, we see tightening. So that's why Marcus pointed out that shift in construction costs. And then, of course, he talked about the insurance cost. We're seeing that across the board for multifamily. So,
thank you, Stacey. Development plan. Once again, from the interiors aspect, the units will feature high quality interiors from kitchens, floorings, living areas, whole host of community areas that you would expect from a Class A building, from club rooms, game rooms, library and conference areas. We spoke about the retail aspect, which we have a preliminary merchandising plan and are looking at ways to lease those spaces. And we talked about the green sustainable aspect from the construction side. Provided on the right is the unit mix. Once again, ranges from studios to 1 bedrooms, dens, 2 bedrooms, all of which are familiar in the marketplace and with input for, what was developed at the Daily. Next slide, please.
Just another quick question, sorry. On the unit size mix, can you say more about the MPDU and workforce mix? I see the counts, but I don't see the mix for those.
Yes, so essentially on the MPD and workforce units, we will have 3 10-bedroom units. When we did the unit mix, and I can
three 10-bedroom.
Around.
Yeah,
3 bedroom.
10 3-bedrooms.
Yeah, 10 3-bedrooms. There's no studios on the affordable side. We did eliminate that and push those to the market rate. And then we have a combination of junior ones, 1s and 2s, all similarly sized and containing the same level of finishes as the market rate units. So there's no sacrifice in quality.
Do we have any 3s?
Yes, 10 of them.
10.
How many of those?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, 3s. Okay.
Yeah, how many of those 3s are MPDU versus workforce?
The MPDUs would be the 3 bedrooms are designated as the MPDUs.
Okay.
And Marcus, are they all below 50% of AMI? All 10 of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, our MPDUs are at 50% of AMI, which we once again worked to make sure we could deliver on that. So
good, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Operating pro forma, assuming a 2.5% blended increase on market and affordable. On our underwriting, carrying a 5% stabilized vacancy. We have our operating expense ratio, really with input from Bozzuto management. Yes, and this is fairly straightforward from the financing standpoint. Also with operational knowledge from Bozzuto, having managed the Daily across the street and being in line with other market rate projects of this size and type. Next slide. This chart here is just more detail for one of the asks of the commission, which is assignment of third-party contracts that were in place when the development was brought to HOC, and really speaks to the high caliber team from the architect, interior designs, which you saw, landscape designer, utility, fitness, and other consultants that we're working with on the project. The development schedule, once again, going back to December of 19, we've been working feverishly the past year through pre-development, the financing piece, and are going right into that third block with construction beginning of 21, and 16-month construction schedule. Sorry, 16 months for first unit delivery, lease up and stabilization. So a little over a 30-month development period. And yes, and with that slide, that concludes the presentation. And at this time, I would ask if you have any further questions.
A lot of the questions have been asked through the presentation.
Okay.
Do I get a recommendation on the approval of resolution 20-86?
Yes, the committee recommends approval. I would just like to add our staff, our committee pleasure at the number of 3-bedroom units and the percent of AMI for those units. They're sorely needed and we're happy to see them. So we recommend approval and adoption of resolution 2086.
Assuming that was the motion, I'll second it.
Probably moved and seconded to approve resolution 20-86. Questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So ordered. Next item is resolution 20-87 and 20-87B for the West Side Shady Grove development. We just heard the first part of this. Now we're talking about the financing plan.
Yes.
West Side.
Sure, and this time Jennifer Arrington, the Assistant Director of Bond Management in the Mortgage Finance Division, will discuss with you the finance plan and a number of other related actions that will allow us to start in earnest. We've been preparing for this, but this will allow us to really start advancing the finance plan that calls for the issuance of up to 100 million in tax-exempt private activity bonds to finance the West Side Shady Grove development. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, who will walk you through this and we'll work our way through it. Jennifer?
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Jennifer Arrington, Assistant Director of Bond Management. And as you just heard and approved West Side Shady Grove Final Development Plan, we are also requesting today approval of its financing plan, its feasibility, public purpose, and a bond authorizing resolution for up to 100 million in tax-exempt refunding bonds. Staff also recommends issuing a commitment and loan to the borrower for construction and permanent financing, and for the borrower to accept the loan in accordance with the financing plan. As you heard a moment ago, a lot has occurred in a little over a year since the Commission first approved its resolution in September 2019, including developing a financing strategy that achieves 3 project goals: obtain the lowest possible interest rate with private participation in the permanent phase and without the use of new volume cap. And we have done this. While West Side Shady Grove qualifies for 4% tax credits due to its 30% affordability component, the financing strategy does not include tax credits because it would require a new allocation of private activity bonds and volume cap, which is in limited supply. To solve for this, in July of this year, the Commission authorized and staff closed on a 100 million tax-exempt loan facility with PNC Bank for the purpose of recycling multifamily volume cap from maturing private activity transactions, including those from Maryland CDA and the Commission. And as of November 2nd, we completed the recycling and have preserved the volume cap needed for West Side Shady Grove, a key ingredient to this financing. If you move to page 113, the financing plan of approximately 124 million includes the issuance of up to 100 million in tax-exempt refunding bonds to fund a tax-exempt construction to permanent 31-year mortgage loan in the same amount. It will be insured under the FHA risk sharing program with a 40-year amortization and sized to meet no less than a 1.15 debt service coverage ratio at stabilization. And with an underwritten stabilized net operating income of $5.6 million, the property is projected to meet FHA's criteria. Other sources include a short-term county bridge loan, developer equity, and upon stabilization, a mezzanine loan that will be sourced during construction that will retire the short-term county funding. Complete sources and uses are found on page 118. To fund the risk share mortgage loan, which HUD and HOC will equally share 50% of the risk, up to $100 million in proceeds from publicly sold tax-exempt refunding bonds will redeem the outstanding recycling facility. And the recycled tax-exempt mortgage repayments that are invested in the GIC or in a GIC will fund the mortgage loan. You can move to page 120. The bonds issued under the 1996 indenture will be structured as risk share pass-through bonds. This structure is being used to attract investors of multifamily bonds structured as pass-through securities, which is similar to a Fannie Mae MTEB transaction. These buyers typically accept a lower bond yield than buyers of traditionally structured multifamily bonds, currently estimated at 40 basis points lower. With risk share pass-through bonds, principal and interest on the bonds will be paid monthly to the investor in lieu of semi-annually, as in typical bond structures. The bonds will be rated AAA, and because of the structure, the bonds will be separately secured under the 1996 indenture, so that bondholders in this transaction are shielded from the other mortgage assets under the indenture. This is different from the other bonds within the indenture that were issued on parity. The financing schedule reflected on page 114 reflects a bond closing at the end of January with construction to directly follow. After an approximate 40-month construction and lease-up period, stabilization is planned to occur in early 2024, and the mortgage loan will convert to perm no later than August 2024. Staff has completed its underwriting and recommends the Commission adopt the actions as listed on page 123 of your brief book. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Just a quick question. One is, so I could probably use some sort of a briefer on recycling private activity bonds. But does this allow us to take advantage of the equity benefits of a LIHTC deal, or no? Because it's not a LIHTC deal, but you're using volume cap.
Correct.
So
no additional equity.
There's no additional equity. Okay, no. That was
so. Okay. So this volume cap was used in prior tax credit transactions. And so because we're recycling them into other multifamily transactions, you're not allowed to use them in another tax credit transaction.
Okay.
And it solves for the need of volume cap.
Okay.
From our own bucket, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. No, like I said, yeah, that's what I assumed, but I'm less familiar with the concept of recycling volume cap. So. The only other thing is not a question. You guys do a great job of putting down on paper there very complex financing deal. I tend to be a little bit visuals, and I spent a lot of time trying to do my best to understand all the different pieces. One thing, just as a request for future briefings, if it would be possible to include like a flow chart.
Sure.
Of all the different pieces, that would just be helpful to me in visualizing, or anything that helps visualize it a little bit, would make it a little bit easier for me.
Sure, and what we can do, I know that we're almost at the end, but what we can do, just to give you a little refresher on or primer on the recycling piece, since you started after this discussion happened with the commission, we can provide you with a flow chart that we actually used when we discussed it with the commission previously. just for your information and for your files. But yes, I do accept your point about using charts to help with the explanation. It can be helpful, but we can send that to you if it will help.
Yeah, no, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Jennifer, is this this is not the first transaction we've done under the $100 million tax exempt credit facility? This is not the first transaction we've done, is it?
This deal, yes.
Okay, this is our first one?
Yes, it is the first and only one because it's designed for this transaction. But you may recall that we drew on the facility in 3 tranches to accumulate enough of this volume capped for this $100 million transaction. We drew down 3 phases to accumulate $100 million.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So this is a one and only, one and done.
It is a one and only, but we're discussing with our financial advisor, who's also financial advisor to CDA, because whenever they issue bonds to meet the 50% test and they redeem early, this is part of that bond burn that we sometimes talk to you about. And to the extent we are able to use those the redeemed bonds to recycle, we would love to be able to take advantage of it if it works for us, as long as we're not doing a tax credit transaction. And so that conversation is ongoing. If we have transactions that fit neatly with their redemptions, we would certainly come back and try to use it again. So this is a one-off opportunity.
Yeah, no, I just thought when we did this initially, I thought it was a very creative approach to how we really shaded volume gap and be able to do a transaction like this. So very good. Okay, any other questions? Can I get a motion to accept the financing plan from resolution 20-87 and 20-87B?
Move approval of resolutions 2087 and 2087B. These resolutions have the full approval of the committee.
Move, do we have a second?
I second.
Seconded by Commissioner Kuhn. Very good. Any questions? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposers, nay. So ordered. So in these 2 transactions, we have seen what we are going to bill and how we're going to finance it. So thank you very much for a very complete presentation related to West Side Shady Grove.
Thank you.
That concludes our agenda for the meeting. And so I will turn to Vice Chair.
Yes, pursuant to section 3-305B of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, I move to adjourn this open session to a closed session to consider the acquisition of real property for a public purpose and matters directly related thereto, and to comply with a specific constitutional, statutory, or judicially imposed requirement that prevents public disclosures about particular proceedings or matters. So that was a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Are there any questions? If none, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. So ordered. We are now adjourned as of 5:49 p.m. I want to thank the staff and thank the commissioners and thank those of you who participated on this live stream of our commission meeting for December the 9th. Thank you all very much and have a great evening.
Could we